While ordering drive-thru burgers, the cashier smirked. She's back already? I looked over. Her lover climbed into the passenger seat, thinking it was her car. I never thought a greasy paper bag of burgers would flip my entire life upside down. The night it happened started out ordinary, almost boring. I had finished a long shift at the workshop, still smelling faintly of motor oil, when Marina texted me. Hungry? Drive-thru. That was our thing sometimes. Not fine dining, not candlelight dinners, just pulling into the neon-lit drive-thru after work, laughing about the voices on the radio, tossing fries at each other in the car. Simple, comfortable, familiar. I thought those little routines meant stability. I thought they meant loyalty. Marina was in the passenger seat that night, scrolling her phone, smiling faintly in that detached way that told me she wasn't fully present. I'd noticed her doing that more often lately, like the glowing screen was her real partner and I was just the driver. Still, I brushed it aside. We'd been together for nearly 3 years. People grow quieter with time. That's what I told myself. The line at the drive-thru stretched longer than usual. A Friday crowd, teenagers buzzing in cars, music leaking from cracked windows. When we finally rolled forward, I leaned out to order 2 cheeseburgers, fries, and a milkshake, the usual. The cashier, a young guy with sharp eyes and a smirk he couldn't hide, handed me the receipt. Then, casually, he tilted his chin at Marina and said, "She's back already?" I blinked, not sure I'd heard right. His tone wasn't just friendly. It was knowing, like he was in on something I wasn't. What? I asked, trying to sound neutral. The cashier's grin widened for a second before he realized my confusion wasn't part of some joke. He backpedaled quickly, muttering, Nothing, man. Drive forward, we'll bring it out." But the word stuck like a hook under my skin. Back already. I glanced at Marina. She looked frozen for half a second, the way someone looks when their poker face cracks just long enough to betray them. Then she forced a little laugh, waved her hand, and said something about cashiers always mixing people up. But her eyes never met mine. I felt an odd chill even though the air vents were humming warm air. I rolled the car forward to wait for the order. My thoughts tangled. Maybe the kid was mistaken. Maybe Marina had been here earlier grabbing something for herself. Nothing unusual. But the way her lips pressed tight told me it wasn't that simple. Then it happened. A shadow moved on my right side. Before I could even process it, the passenger door jerked open, and a man slid into the seat beside Marina with the confidence of someone who'd done it a dozen times. "Finally," he said, tossing a glance at Marina, not at me. "I thought you were going to leave me standing out there forever." The world tilted. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. The stranger, mid-30s, dark jacket, stubble, froze when his eyes landed on me instead of whoever he expected. His face drained of color. Marina gasped and shoved her phone into her pocket, stammering something that didn't sound like words. For a moment, nobody moved. The smell of frying oil and cheap coffee drifted from the drive-thru window. Outside, a group of kids laughed in the car behind us, oblivious. Inside my car, time had collapsed into a silent battlefield. The man cleared his throat, clearly scrambling for a cover. I thought this was. He looked at Marina, panic creeping into his voice. "I thought this was your car." Marina's eyes darted everywhere, but at me. "Darren, it's not what." But I didn't let her finish. "Get out," I said quietly. Not a shout, not a question, just an instruction. The man scrambled out of the car so fast he nearly dropped his phone. He stood there on the curb, shifting his weight like he might say something else, then thought better of it. He backed away, disappearing toward the dim parking lot. I didn't move. I just sat there, staring straight ahead. The paper bag of burgers arrived in the cashier's hand, awkwardly hovering through the window. I took it mechanically, thanked him flatly, and drove off. The ride home was thick with silence. Marina kept opening her mouth as if to explain, but I didn't give her the chance. My hand stayed steady on the wheel, but inside, gears were grinding furiously. Images from the past months replayed in my head. The late nights at the gym, the study sessions with friends, the sudden defensiveness if I asked where she was going. How many of those times had ended right here, under the glow of this drive-thru's neon sign? When we pulled into the apartment lot, I parked but didn't cut the engine. Marina finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Please, Darren, let me explain. It's not what it looked like." I turned to her, calm in a way that felt unnatural. "Then what was it?" She swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "He's just a friend," he thought. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Friends climb into cars like that? Friends get the cashier smirking about how she's back already?" Her lips trembled. She looked smaller than usual, hunched in the seat like a cornered animal. But I didn't push. I didn't demand the truth right then. Because I already knew. Pressing her would only lead to half-baked excuses and practiced lies. Instead, I shut off the engine, tossed the bag of food onto her lap, and got out. Inside the apartment, I went straight to the bedroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed with my head in my hands. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. My mind was moving too fast for that. Instead, I started replaying every suspicious moment I'd ignored. Every time she claimed she'd be running errands, but returned hours later with no bags. Every late-night text she brushed off as just a meme from a friend. Every sudden need for privacy. I thought of the cashier's smirk. That wasn't the reaction of someone seeing a customer's first mistake. That was the grin of someone recognizing a routine. And that meant this wasn't new. I stayed awake long after Marina went to bed, listening to her restless turning on the couch. My phone buzzed with a text from a buddy asking if I was coming out for drinks, but I ignored it. My mind was somewhere else entirely. That one accidental moment, a stranger stepping into the wrong car, had ripped open a curtain I couldn't close again. Behind it lay weeks, maybe months, of secrets. I didn't know the man's name yet. I didn't know the full extent of what Marina had been doing behind my back. But I knew one thing with cold certainty. I was going to find out. Not by yelling. Not by begging. By watching. By listening. By piecing the puzzle together one fact at a time. Because whatever this was, it wasn't over. And if Marina thought she could keep two separate worlds spinning without them crashing together, she was about to learn how quickly everything can collapse. The morning after the drive-thru incident, the apartment felt like a stage after a play had ended. Props scattered, silence heavy, everything waiting for someone to clean up the wreck. Marina moved around quietly, making coffee like nothing had happened. She didn't mention the man, didn't offer new explanations, didn't even try to laugh it off. That silence told me more than words ever could. She was waiting for me to either blow up or to pretend it never happened. I didn't either. Instead, I carried on with routine. Ate breakfast, kissed her forehead, left for work as usual. But under the surface, my focus had shifted. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her shadow. At the workshop, my hands worked on engines while my mind worked on Marina. The cashier's words replayed like a broken record. She's back already? If he had recognized her, that meant repetition. She hadn't been caught once. She'd been caught in a pattern. That evening, I made my first move. Marina was showering, her phone buzzing faintly on the counter. Normally, I avoided snooping. But now, boundaries had already been burned. I unlocked her screen with the code I'd memorized months ago, not out of mistrust, but convenience. At least, that's what I used to tell myself. Messages scrolled under my thumb. Nothing incriminating at first. A few harmless chats with coworkers, her sister reminding her about dinner plans. Then I saw it. A contact saved as dentist office. The thread was thin, mostly missed calls, short bursts of text, then deletions. But she hadn't been careful enough. One message remained. Tonight? I called the number. The voice that answered was unmistakable. The man from the drive-thru. Yeah, he said, casual, unaware. I hung up before he could say more. My pulse hammered. So it wasn't paranoia. It wasn't misunderstanding. Marina had gone far enough to disguise him as a professional service. That wasn't carelessness. That was premeditated deceit. I slipped the phone back and walked out before she finished showering. On the surface, everything looked normal. Inside, a plan was forming. The following days blurred into observation. I noticed small cracks widening. Marina lingered longer over her phone, always angling the screen away. She insisted on running errands alone. She became more affectionate suddenly, clinging to me at random moments, as though overcompensating. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I installed a discreet app on her phone while she slept. Nothing flashy, just a tracker for outgoing calls. Each alert pinged me like a drip of acid. The dentist office number lit up twice in 3 days, each time in the evening. On the fourth night, I told Marina I'd be working late. Instead, I drove a different car, my brother's, and parked across from the burger place. The neon lights buzzed overhead, casting that sickly glow I was beginning to hate. I waited, sipping burnt coffee, eyes fixed on the lot. At 8:17 p.m., Marina's silhouette appeared. She wasn't alone. The same man from before walked beside her, laughing, gesturing toward my car. No, not my car this time, but hers, the older sedan she usually lets sit unused. Only, she hadn't driven it tonight. She'd taken mine again. They slid inside, him at ease, her tossing her hair in that way she did when she wanted attention. They pulled through the drive-thru lane, the cashier leaning out with that same grin. I saw his lips move, recognition clear, before the bag passed into her hands. There it was. The routine. The cashier wasn't mistaken. They had been here together often enough that staff knew them. My chest tightened, but I didn't move. I let them finish, drive off, disappear into the night. Because now, watching them from the shadows, I understood. If I wanted this to end cleanly, I couldn't react emotionally. I needed evidence. Proof solid enough that even Marina couldn't spin it away. 2 nights later, Opportunity arrived. Marina left her laptop open while rushing out for groceries. Out of habit, I touched the trackpad. A chat app flickered awake. Her lover's name wasn't listed plainly, but the chat header read, T. That was all. Inside, I found fragments, half-deleted messages, conversations timed late at night. Next week. He won't know. Same spot. Don't worry, I'll bring your favorite. I copied everything. Screenshots, save files, backup drive. Each piece was a nail tightening the coffin of trust. But evidence wasn't enough for me. I wanted clarity. How long? Why him? And most importantly, how far would she go to protect it? I returned to the burger place one last time, not to watch Marina, but to speak. The cashier was outside on a smoke break, his hat pulled low, hoodie zipped against the chill. He recognized me instantly, stiffening. Hey, I said, steady, non-threatening. I just want to ask a question. He hesitated, cigarette hanging from his fingers. The other night, you said, she's back already. You weren't talking to me. You were talking about her, weren't you? He shifted, eyes darting. Silence stretched. Finally, he exhaled smoke and muttered, Man, I don't want trouble. I thought you knew. She's been here a lot. With that guy? Same order every time. Always in your car. That's why I said it. I nodded, thanked him, and walked away. No anger, no threats. Just confirmation. That night, Marina came home later than usual. She carried a grocery bag with only 2 items inside, chips and soda. Her excuse about long lines barely filled the air before evaporating. I watched her from across the kitchen, noticing how her eyes flicked toward her phone every few minutes. The pieces had locked together now. The cashier's slip, the lover's mistake at the drive-thru, the disguise contact, the tracking app alerts, her late nights, the fake errands. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't some brief lapse. It was a full double life conducted in the open, using my car, my time, my trust as props. But still, I said nothing, because something inside me had shifted. Confrontation wasn't enough. If I exploded, if I screamed, she'd just deny, twist, maybe even turn it against me. That wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted was to strip the mask off in a way she couldn't recover from. I wanted her to see herself exactly as I saw her now. Reckless, careless, caught in her own web. And to do that, I'd need more than evidence. I'd need a trap. The following morning, Marina kissed me goodbye with a sweetness that felt rehearsed. As soon as she left, I sat down at the table with my notes, screenshots, and recordings. For the first time in days, I let myself smile. I knew where she went. I knew who she met. And soon, I'd know exactly what promises she whispered to him when she thought I couldn't hear. Because next time she slipped behind the wheel of my car, she wouldn't be alone. The car would be listening. Once the decision settled in my chest, it felt like iron. No more second-guessing. No more debating whether I had misunderstood. I had the outlines of the truth already. What I needed now was to draw them in their own colors, in a way so undeniable that even Marina's most desperate lies couldn't repaint it. So I spent the next week preparing. It started with the car. My car, the one Marina favored for her errands. I knew she'd use it again. She couldn't resist. The sedan she technically owned sat mostly unused, its interior stale, its engine grumbling. She preferred my newer model, with smooth steering and working air conditioning, which meant it was the perfect stage. I ordered 2 small cameras online, the kind marketed for security use, meant for homeowners paranoid about their packages. They were no bigger than a thumb, easily fixed under the dash and behind the rearview mirror. They connected wirelessly to my phone, streaming directly into my pocket. I installed them one evening while Marina was at her sister's. It took less than an hour. When I slid into the driver's seat afterward and tested the feed, my phone lit up with a clear view of both front seats. I could almost see Marina sitting there already, hair tucked behind her ear, leaning close to him. The thought made my stomach twist, but I forced myself to focus. This wasn't about pain anymore. It was about clarity. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. On Wednesday morning, Marina announced she'd be shopping for a few hours. Her tone was casual, practiced, the way someone tosses crumbs to a bird expecting it to flutter off without suspicion. I nodded, handed her the keys, and watched her leave. The cameras blinked alive the moment the engine started. I sat on the couch, headphones in, pretending to scroll the news, when my phone vibrated with the live feed. Marina drove smoothly through town, humming faintly. 10 minutes later, the passenger door opened. Tobias slid inside. Hearing his name felt odd at first. I discovered it through a snippet on her chat app. A casual "see you soon, T." Now here he was, no longer a blur from the drive-thru, but flesh and bone in my car. The conversation was ordinary at first. Work complaints, jokes about the cashier, who always stares. Then Tobias said something that stiffened my spine. So, when are you going to tell him? Marina's laugh was brittle. Not yet. He's stable, reliable. I need him until things are certain. Certain? Tobias asked. About us, she said. About where this is going. You know how it is. I watched the screen, while rising in my throat. I had expected flirty banter, even affection. I hadn't expected calculation. Marina wasn't clinging to me out of guilt. She was using me as a safety net while deciding whether Tobias was worth cutting the rope for. They pulled through the drive-thru, routine as clockwork. The cashier's smirk was sharper this time, like he knew the script by heart. Tobias made a joke about their usual booth on wheels, and Marina laughed, tossing her hair. Every second recorded, every word preserved. When they finished, they parked in a lot near the river. The camera caught Marina leaning across the console, whispering. Tobias rested a hand on her knee, confident, comfortable. You said you'd be free by summer, he reminded her. I will, she replied. He's too blind to notice. Besides, his lease ends in June. Perfect timing. Those words hit harder than any blow. Not only was she cheating, she was scheduling my exit, treating my life like a line item on a calendar. I saved the recording immediately. The files backed up to the cloud, safe from accidental loss. By the time she drove back hours later, unloading a single bag of groceries to maintain her facade, I was no longer wondering. I was building. The first brick of revenge fell quietly. I tracked down Tobias's workplace. He wasn't difficult to find. Marina's chat app held an old photo of him in a polo shirt with a company logo visible. A logistics firm, mid-sized, reputable. I looked them up, found the HR department, found the manager's contact. I didn't send the footage. Not yet. I drafted an email, attached stills from the car feed, included a polite line. One of your managers may be conducting activities during company hours that reflect poorly on your organization. Then I saved it in drafts. It wasn't time to press send. But knowing it was there, ready, gave me leverage. The second brick was family. I visited Marina's father, Gerard, under the pretense of borrowing tools. He was an old-fashioned man, stern, opinionated, convinced his daughter had chosen well in me. Over a beer, he asked if we were still planning the future. I looked him in the eye and said, I think Marina might be making other plans. He frowned, confused. I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. A seed planted in a man like Gerard grew fast. By the end of the week, I had evidence, leverage, and a growing network of people who would be ready to hear the truth when I revealed it. But I wanted one last piece. Proof not only of infidelity, but of intent. Proof that Marina wasn't just lost in a fling. She was actively dismantling what we had. So I baited the hook. That Friday, I told her I'd be away overnight for a job out of town. She kissed me quickly, almost too quickly, and waved me off. I parked my brother's car a block away and streamed the feed. As expected, within an hour, Tobias was in my passenger seat again. They drove to the river lot, laughing, sharing fries from the bag. The conversation that followed sealed everything. Marina, he thinks I'm out shopping. He doesn't suspect a thing. Tobias, you're sure he won't find out? Marina, even if he does, what's he gonna do? Cry? He's too dependent on me. He'd never leave. The casual cruelty in her tone was worse than the betrayal itself. She didn't just deceive me, she underestimated me. I saved the file, sent a copy to a hidden drive, and closed the stream. The trap was complete. The next morning, Marina greeted me at the door with a bright smile, coffee in hand, pretending nothing had shifted. She had no idea her entire double life was now packaged neatly on my phone, waiting for exposure. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I played along, sipping the coffee, listening to her chatter about weekend plans, nodding at all the right places. Because what she didn't realize was that she was standing on a trapdoor, and I had my hand on the lever. By Sunday, the walls around her were primed. Tobias's company, Gerard, the cashier, if necessary. Even Tobias's girlfriend, another lead I'd uncovered through a tagged photo on social media, a woman named Sienna. She didn't know yet, but she would. I didn't want screaming or broken plates. I didn't want Marina spinning a story about confusion or emotional mistakes. I wanted her to sit at a table surrounded by every person she'd deceived, with nowhere to run, and watch the mask collapse in her own hands. And that moment was coming soon. Very soon. The weekend dragged like a loaded gun waiting to go off. Every moment I spent beside Marina felt like sitting across from a stranger wearing her skin. She laughed, she leaned against me on the couch. She asked what I wanted for dinner, and all I could hear was her voice on the recording. Even if he finds out, what's he gonna do? Cry? He'd never leave. She was wrong. By Monday, the plan was set. The recordings were organized, the screenshots labeled, the emails drafted. All that remained was choosing the stage. I wanted a place neutral enough that she couldn't claim I ambushed her in our home, but public enough that when the collapse came, it would echo. The cafe down the street worked perfectly. Quiet, respectable, frequented by people we both knew. I invited Gerard, Tobias's girlfriend Sienna, and Marina herself, framing it as a casual coffee to catch up. Only Gerard questioned the setup, but I told him, "You'll understand when you get there." The morning of the meeting, Marina dressed carefully. She asked if I was nervous. I smiled and said no. At the cafe, I arrived first, chose a corner table with enough space for everyone, and waited. Gerard entered next, suspicion etched on his face. Sienna came soon after, looking tired, wary. Finally, Marina arrived, cheerful, carrying the same false brightness she had worn for weeks. Her smile faltered when she saw who else was seated. "What is this?" she asked, eyes darting between her father and the stranger she didn't recognize. I gestured to the chairs. "Sit. We'll talk." Reluctantly, she lowered herself into the seat across from me. I didn't start with accusations. I started with evidence. My phone slid across the table, screen glowing. The video played. Marina in my passenger seat, Tobias's voice clear, the two of them laughing, making plans, dismissing me as a fool. Her face drained of color. Gerard's jaw tightened, his hand curling into a fist on the table. Sienna leaned forward, lips parting in shock. Marina stammered, "Darren, please." I cut her off. "No explanations. Just listen." I played the second clip, the one at the river lot. Her words about needing me until the lease ended. About using me for stability. The cafe around us buzzed with low chatter, the clinking of cups, oblivious to the storm breaking at our table. When the recording ended, silence slammed down. Gerard spoke first, voice low and trembling with anger. "Marina, what the hell have you been doing?" She shook her head violently. "It's not. It's taken out of context." Sienna slammed her palm on the table. "Out of context? That's my boyfriend's voice. That's your hand on his leg." The denial collapsed under the weight of too many witnesses. Marina's composure cracked. She started crying, reaching for me, pleading, "I can explain. Darren, please." I pulled my chair back, her hands grasping empty air. "You had months to explain," I said. My voice was steady, calm, almost detached. "You chose lies instead. Now you can live with the truth." The fallout began instantly. Sienna stormed out, already pulling out her phone, no doubt ready to call Tobias and end whatever remained between them. Gerard stayed, fury radiating off him. He told Marina she had shamed him, shamed herself, and that she could forget about financial support from that day forward. Marina collapsed in her chair, sobbing, begging both of us not to abandon her. But abandonment wasn't the right word. Consequences were. I stood, placed a folder on the table, printed screenshots, copies of chat logs, photos. "This is for you, Gerard, in case she tries to tell another story later." Then I walked out. I didn't return to the apartment. My bags had been packed 2 nights earlier, stored at my brother's. By the time Marina came home from the cafe, she found an empty closet, keys left on the counter, lease papers signed over to her name alone. The next day, I pressed send on the email draft to Tobias's company. Within 48 hours, I received a polite response thanking me for bringing misconduct during work hours to their attention. A week later, word reached me that Tobias was suspended pending investigation. Marina tried to call, dozens of times. The first messages begged. The next accused. The last ones turned desperate again. I didn't answer. What was there left to say? I learned through mutual acquaintances that she moved back into her father's house briefly before he pushed her out. Without financial support, without Tobias, without me, she scrambled for a part-time job at a clothing store. The image of her, once so certain of her own cleverness, reduced to patching together a life she had dismantled herself, was almost satisfying. Not because I wished her misery, but because she had built her world on deception, and when the mask dropped, there was nothing underneath strong enough to hold it together. As for me, the weeks after leaving felt strangely light. Pain lingered, yes. Betrayal leaves scars no evidence can fully explain. But there was relief too, like breathing clean air after months underground. I didn't seek revenge beyond what I had already done. The evidence spoke for itself. The consequences unfolded naturally. Tobias lost his job. Sienna moved out, leaving him to face his own wreckage. Gerard turned his back on Marina, no longer willing to excuse her choices. And I walked forward, free. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the cashier's words echoing. "She's back already?" A careless slip from a stranger that shattered the illusion I was living in. Funny how truth hides in plain sight, waiting for the smallest crack to show itself. A smirk, a mistaken step into the wrong car, a voice too comfortable in the dark. The trap wasn't mine alone. In the end, they set it for themselves. I just chose when to let it spring.